Happy Friday, everybody. It is I, Brian, one of your hosts for EOBO, just doing a short intro for the episode 11, where Chris and I talk about the streaming comedy site Seeso, which unfortunately is going out of business. They are taking down the service. So get your free trial in as soon as you can to watch those shows that we talk about, like Take My Wife, the My Brother and Me show, as well as Hidden America with Jonah Ray. Hit bajillions. We'll talk about it all in the episode. But before we get into that, I want to give a few thanks and shout outs again. First off, Luke and Kelly, who are in Illinois. Kelly, a continued supporter. Luke, who gave me some feedback this week, thus meriting the shout out. Thank you, buddy. We're going to be putting that towards future episodes. We got Jeff in Minnesota, who's been a continued listener also. Really appreciate your support, Jeff. Hope you, Billy, and Gunther are doing well. And then we got Kevin out on the East Coast. We were trying to figure out what was going on there and how we were getting listeners out on the East Coast. But then we found you, buddy, and we appreciate it. And again, we're just getting a lot of good feedback. So continue to listen, continue to rate, review, and subscribe, so that way we can maybe bust out of our listenership of the people that we know and start hitting those people that we don't know. Chris and I are working very hard to figure that out. And then we are on all platforms now. So you and your friends, tell your friends they have no reason not to listen to. We're on Android. We're on iPhones, we are on Apple, we are on PC. You name it, you can listen to it on it, except cassettes, 8-tracks, and CDs. We are solely a streaming and download medium only. So keep that in mind. You can burn us to a CD. I don't know how you get us on 8-track. That was before my time. Episode 11, Brian and Chris watch Seeso. We also talk about a variety of other things, but I won't get into that now. I will just let you listen to the episode 11 of Eyes On, Brains Off.
Welcome to Eyes On, Brains Off, episode 11. Today's secret word is banana.
Remember, every time you hear banana in another podcast you're listening to this week, you have to text Chris and I banana.
Whoever texts the most...
Of course, that only applies. Whoever texts us the most...
wins a special prize.
What's the special prize, Chris?
Spoiler, it's a banana.
I didn't know where you were going with that, but that is still far better than anything I would have come up with.
Hey, it's the secret word. It's the secret word for a reason, so...
That is correct. What made you decide we were going to start doing secret words in our visual podcast?
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about, Brian. This has been a regular feature of Eyes On, Brains Off since the very beginning. Have you been cutting those parts out?
Have we just been mistakenly editing that part out?
Maybe we have. Maybe that just gets cut every time. If man. Sorry, listeners.
People have been missing out on such great words then, like broadsword, mango,
zucchini,
orangutan, zucchini.
It's a lot of animal and plant, fruit, and vegetable type.
It's very tropical. It is very tropical.
It's very tropical. Yeah. Are zucchinis tropical? I don't know.
They're tropical enough when you pair them with mangoes and orangutans.
I suppose. They just kind of blend in with the rest. Okay,
this might be my favorite intro ever.
Well, welcome to our podcast, everyone. This is our podcast where we talk about everything we watched in the past week to give you a little direction on where your viewing habits should lie. I'm one of your hosts, Chris, if you haven't picked up on that already.
I am the other host, Brian. How's everybody doing?
Oh, man, I'm doing...
I guess that's rhetorical.
It's a little rhetorical. I'm doing pretty well. How are you? How are you doing, Brian?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing, Chris?
I already said I'm doing good, but I'm still doing good.
Okay.
Thank you for checking in 2 seconds later.
I might check in about halfway through the episode, too. Just to really make sure.
Hey, I appreciate your thoughts.
One sec. Hey, Siri, remind me to ask Chris how he's doing in 20 minutes.
Siri again? We can't bring Siri.
I'll remind you.
Yep, there we go. All right, we're set. Let's keep going.
Wonderful. Okay.
How was your week?
My week was good, busy, moved. I'm recording in a brand new studio this week.
If we got a studio.
If we can call it a studio. It's actually a one-bedroom apartment, but it is my podcasting studio. So
okay, yeah,
changing it up a little bit, but good.
Yeah.
Had a few friends come down and help me move, and went about as smoothly as it could, and just settling in and really liking the new digs. But that's pretty much the big highlight for me this week. What about you, Brian?
Well, I took a trip down to Salt Lake this weekend. It was a late drive on Friday, admittedly, so it's not like I could have taken the day, which is unfortunate. But we went and we saw Ben Folds and the Utah Symphony Orchestra down at the Deer Valley Amphitheater in Salt Lake, and it was tremendous. Well, it was such a fantastic concert.
Look at you going to see some live shows, switching it up this week. Me, not, and you are.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's exactly what we were looking to do. Man, if you ever get to see any kind of show at the Deer Valley Amphitheater in Salt Lake, I highly recommend it. It's just a beautiful setup. You sit on a hill in a chair as the sun... You got to get there early. That's the thing. You got to get there at like 4:45, 5 o'clock, because doors are going to open at 5:30, and you got to go mark your territory. And it's very much like that Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman movie where you run up, into the field, and you got to stake your spot with your chair and your cooler. And April and I got a pretty good spot out of it.
Wait, what? What movie are you talking about?
It's Head West. No, it's shit. Hold on. Okay, hold on a second.
Wait, Nicole Kidman and who?
Tom Cruise. Yeah, they're in this movie.
Eyes Wide Shut?
No, it's not Eyes Wide Shut. No. But it was around that time. It was definitely around the Days of Thunder, Mission Impossible. Oh, it's called Far and Away. It's called Far and Away. Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman play Irish immigrants from Ireland, which might be a spoiler, but the movie's been out since... Hold on. The movie's been out since 1992, so I think we can spoil a few things. So, yeah, they're Irish Americans. They show up, and they're just kind of in the New York, Boston area, right? And, Nicole Kidman's kind of upper-class Irish. Tom Cruise very much not so, but he really wants to own his own land in, the new West, the new colonies and everything like that. And it's not so old. They still have, trains and stuff. And they're hanging out in New York, and they kind of get into some shenanigans, not to be incredibly racist at the moment with that term. However, shenanigans indeed they get into, and basically they have to split up. So they're in love with each other, they're hanging out, they're having a great time, but they're poor in New York. And they split up because Nicole Kidman gets super injured, and she goes back to her old life. And Tom Cruise is like, you know what, manifest destiny. I'm gonna head west, and they're in Oklahoma. I think it's Oklahoma, and it's one of these old deals where, in order to get people to move west, when they got the Louisiana Purchase, and I could just be pulling shit out of my ass right now, but when they got the Louisiana Purchase, I believe it was a contest thing where, you paid your entry fee, and then it was a race to get a plot of land. You got a map, and you had to provide your own horse. It was BYOH. And basically from the start, you had to race to your spot, plot your own flag down, and then claim it, and then that was your land. And that was a real thing that happened that they used as a vehicle in this movie to show Tom Cruise's dedication to Nicole Kidman that worked. And I feel winded now.
Jeez.
Do you feel winded?
I feel exhausted, yeah, just hearing that. A couple things. One, let no one ever say that this podcast is not educational, because we just got an entire history lesson and the entire plot of a movie that... And this is the second thing I have never heard of before. I have no idea what you are talking about or that this movie even exists.
I'm somewhat surprised at that, because we totally watched that in my AP US history class, because everybody knows Tom Cruise makes the best US history movies from Hollywood. So that's where that came from. And then I think I remember watching it another time before then. I mean, it's been out since 1992, and I'm sure TNT picked it up at some point for their cable television service for a month or so at some point. Or maybe it was AMC. I don't know. I don't think it matters.
Do you want me to check the record books on that one?
Can you? Can you?
I'll talk to my guy.
Oh, yeah, okay.
We'll see if he gets back to us before the episode's over.
Who's your guy?
It's not important, but he's on it. He's looking. He's looking right now.
Do you want to set a reminder with your phone?
No, I don't. You can set one with yours.
I'm okay.
Okay. Well,
no, I'm okay. We'll remember.
Now that we've talked about a movie you didn't watch this week, should we dive into what you have? Or did you watch this movie this week? Is that why it's on your mind?
No, I didn't watch this movie this week. I just remember Tom Cruise just says... Actually, no, I can't remember if it's a really good Irish accent or if it's a terrible Irish accent.
Seems.
But it's really hard to forget, I'll tell you that much.
Seems like it could go either way pretty easily.
Pretty much. It's young Tom Cruise. I don't know how you feel about that.
He's kind of ageless.
He's definitely gotten older.
Well, yes. I'm not denying that. That's why I said kind of ageless. And ironically enough, I did watch a Tom Cruise movie this week, which I will be talking about. Yeah.
Go ahead and kick us off. What were your movies this week?
Well, so I'll start with The Mummy, starring one Mr. Tom Cruise.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, which that's about the right reaction to it. The reason I saw this movie is one of my friends who came to help me move this weekend. We were going to go see a movie, and there was a lot out, and we were kind of having a little trouble coming to a consensus on what we wanted to go see. And not just a consensus, but a little trouble mustering the enthusiasm to go spend $10 or $12 to go see some of the options we had out before us. But luckily enough, the budget theater out here was playing Tom Cruise's The Mummy from earlier this summer, which I had not seen and had been a little interested in, and my buddy was open to seeing that one as well, so we thought for $3 a pop, why not? The reason why not is that this movie is terrible. It is a really, really bad movie. It is a movie I would have been okay walking out of, and I've never walked out of a movie, and the only reason I didn't walk out is because my friend kind of seemed to be enjoying it a little bit, so... You know, this movie begins as any mummy movie would, with the Knights Templar in the 1100s. So right off the bat, you know you're right in that sweet spot. After about a very brief 30-second clip of one of these Knights Templar being buried in a crypt, you cut to the present day, where a large drilling machine breaks into said crypt. So, you know, I was very confused about why the movie was starting this way, because it did not make much sense to me. And then after that, we get pretty much the entire movie is just exposition. It is just people telling you things that happen with very mild and not exactly imaginative action fantasy set pieces thrown into the mix. So... there are a lot of movies that have done this. There are a lot of movies that have done it better. And I would avoid this movie at all costs because it is really, really bad.
You know, it seemed really, really bad.
I was mildly interested in it from the trailers. I thought they were trying to do something a little creative with it. And the problem is, what I realized with this movie is that Tom Cruise is not funny. Tom Cruise can be wry, like kind of... you know, sarcastic, and he can be funny in an upset way, but he's trying to be Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man in this movie, I should say, and he cannot pull it off to save his life. It's one of the very few movies, I've only seen a handful of movies that I can recall that from the minute the movie starts, I know that this movie is not going to work. That just everything feels off about it, and it can never come together in any good way.
You know, he used to have some charm. I mean, I think you're on the head there with Tom Cruise not being funny, but I think he can be charming. And when he's charming, that can be a vehicle for humor to come across.
Yes.
Whether it's sarcasm or, it's dry humor, and it really depends on the line that he's given by the writers. But just to be... you're right. He's not funny. That's not something I realized. I also worry that Tom Cruise basically only plays himself these days.
Yeah, so I think going back to what you were just saying is that part of the issue is that in a movie like Mission Impossible, the last Mission Impossible movie, which I really, really enjoyed with Tom Cruise in it, Rogue Nation, his character in that, Ethan Hunt, is a hero. He is a virtuous guy who has to sometimes make tough calls, and therefore that charm comes off a little bit better. Here he is trying to play more of a scoundrel, selfish character, and a lot of Tom Cruise characters are selfish, but this guy, we're trying to believe that there's some goodness in him, and that's kind of the whole point of the movie, which is, pretty boring to begin with, but it's just that charm doesn't work as well when he's trying to be more of like a scoundrel than a, guy put in a tough position.
Yeah. And I want to know real quick, and we're going to switch gears here. Switching gears on the same bike. When it comes to Mission Impossible movies, what is your least to favorite? Or, least favorite to favorite?
How does it go? Favorite to well, it's so hard because that isn't...
Worst to best.
That isn't a film series I have watched multiple times. I've seen a lot of those movies only once, and at pretty much when they've come out. I remember Mission Impossible was one of the first, or Mission Impossible 2, I should say, was one of the first PG-13 movies I remember seeing in the theaters. And then, I saw number 3 when it came out, when I think I was in high school, and, Tom Cruise was, going crazy on the couch. And then 4 and 5 more recently. So I have more fondness, I guess, for the newer ones, 3 through 5. But I don't know. It's just so hard for me to say because the one I've probably seen the most is Rogue Nation because that's the only one I own. And that's probably my favorite. So I can give you my favorite, which was 5 probably. And 4 and 3 are okay, and I know 2 is usually ranked as the worst, and I just haven't seen 1 in forever. So that's the best I can do for you.
Okay. Fair enough.
What about on your end? Where would you put them, if you can?
They're only 5, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're soon going to come out with 6, which is going to feature, why am I blanking on his name right now? Superman.
Henry Cavill.
Yeah, that's it. Cap,
yeah,
right?
Something like that.
Okay. Where he's sporting a badass mustache.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just point that out right now. I have watched the older ones a little bit more recently. April and I had a marathon one weekend just to kind of go back through it. And so the older ones are a little fresher in my mind. So if we're going my least favorite to favorite, or what I think are the worst to best Mission Impossible films, I'm going to go with 2, 4, and that was 4 was shoot. It had Sawyer from Lost in it.
Yeah, Ghost Protocol, Brian. The second best title of a movie that comes after a colon after Tokyo Drift.
It goes Tokyo Drift, then Ghost Protocol.
Then Ghost Protocol, yes.
Okay, all right. So for me, it goes Mission Impossible 2, it goes Ghost Protocol, and then I'll go into Rogue Nation. I did thoroughly enjoy Rogue Nation, though. I think that should be noted. I think it's just a lot of fun. And then it's the third one with Philip Seymour Hoffman, and then I think the best one is just the first one.
I think that's a pretty good ranking.
I think it's just it's a solid movie.
Yeah.
First one's a solid movie.
And the third one, I remember catching a little bit of that on cable a little while ago, and, you know, having a lot more distance from when it first came out, I was like, man, this movie's good. Like, Philip Seymour Hoffman is awesome in that movie.
Oh, he's excellent in that movie. And that was directed by J.J. Abrams.
Right. So, good.
So I think that's got a lot of why it's number 3 on my list, because, you know, that was him coming off of Alias and Lost for the most part. And that was a situation in which Tom Cruise just said, hey, do you want to direct a third Mission Impossible movie? And he said yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's his, as far as I think I'm correct in saying that, that's J.J. Abrams' first, you know, it's his directorial debut on the film side.
Is it?
I think so.
Oh.
I know he did a lot of TV direction,
cool.
like he did the Lost pilot and, you know, a bunch of Alias
Yeah.
episodes and stuff, but yeah, I think film-wise that was his first movie.
Oh, you know what it was? Okay, so I was watching, this was a while ago, and that's how I know the story. It's an old show called Dinner for Five, featuring Kevin Smith, right? Jay and Silent Bob, he's Silent Bob, Kevin Smith, that's what I'm thinking of?
Yeah.
Okay, this podcast, by the way, is maybe super paranoid that I'm going to get shit wrong.
Good.
So, yeah, all right. Fair enough. So it's Kevin Smith, and he used to host this show where he would just have, you know, actors, directors, writers around a dinner table, and they would film it, and it would just be this casual conversation. So it's an episode with, so Kevin Smith is there, obviously. J.J. Abrams is there, as well as Mark Hamill, and that's it. Then I want to say Stan Lee was there, but I don't really remember who else was there. Oh, no. Crap. It was the guy from Mallrats. He's a Kevin Smith guy. He's in most of his movies, and he played the lead singer of the band followed in Almost Famous. You know what I'm talking about?
Is it Jason Lee?
It is Jason Lee.
There we go.
Yeah. So they were just sitting around a table, and J.J. Abrams is talking about how he got the directing role for Mission Impossible 3, and it's directly because of the first season of Lost. Tom Cruise went home and he binge-watched Lost on the DVD set, and he said, man, this is great. And then he was just hanging out with J.J. Abrams and said, do you want to direct a movie?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And it's really fun because then you see Mark Hamill talking to J.J. Abrams about the direction he wanted to go with Star Wars for the original trilogy. And now to think that those two are working together, or at least work together on episode 7, is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And the fact that they ended up closing that circle.
Yeah, it's fun to see things come around like that.
I super lost where we were before I got on that very long tangent.
Yes, we diverted a little bit. Tom Cruise seems to be having that effect on us tonight. The last thing I'll say about The Mummy, the one part that I did like, because again, there's like the action isn't very good, the dialogue isn't very good, like their attempts at humor are pretty poor, but part of what they were doing in this movie is trying to set up a cinematic universe for all of the Universal Pictures monsters to exist in, and they do an okay job with that. The big connector there is Russell Crowe playing Dr. Jekyll, and there is a really fun part where he becomes Mr. Hyde for the briefest of moments and fights Tom Cruise, and the change in personality where Dr. Jekyll is very buttoned up and well-to-do and very pragmatic. Mr. Hyde is like Cockney accented, and he's trying to be like the idea is that Tom Cruise gets cursed and he is destined because of this curse to become the embodiment of evil in the world, and Mr. Hyde recognizes that, and he's like, hey, I want to see this happen, and we can be partners and all that. Like, it's very entertaining. It was the only part of that movie I enjoyed, and it was far too brief in my opinion. But that's about all I can say on The Mummy at that part.
Russell Crowe can sometimes save things.
Oh, totally. I know a lot of people don't like him, but I think he is a really fun presence to have in a lot of movies.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I won't argue that he saved Man of Steel by any means. But he was definitely all right in that. I just don't think he had that great of a role that was given to him, which is tough.
Yeah, he at least looked like he was enjoying himself while he was doing it, too. Like, a lot of people were just like, oh, this is very serious. And he's like, hey, this is kind of cool and fun, and we're doing Superman things. He's very soft-spoken in that movie for the most part, you know.
Well, he's a very good Jor-El.
Yes.
I thought underutilized, too.
Oh, you think? I think they utilized him probably enough and maybe too much even, if need be. Because he was Ghost Dad for most of the movie, and I don't need a lot of Ghost Dad, so...
They could have... it would have been nice if they spent a little bit more time in that origin, when he was alive.
Well, that's what this new Krypton show will be for then, Brian. You can enjoy it.
Oh, yay. Is Russell Crowe going to do a Krypton show?
No, but
probably not.
Sci-fi. He probably won't show up. Anyway, the only other movie I watched then this week was a rewatch for a movie called The Losers, which is a 2010 film starring Idris Elba, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Chris Evans, Zoe Saldana. I think those are like the biggest names in that movie. And it's just a fun, it's kind of a mediocre action movie, but a really fun mediocre action movie. The plot isn't overly complicated, but the characters are just a ton of fun. And similar to that one scene of The Mummy that I enjoyed, or I guess I should say Russell Crowe, everyone just seems to be having a blast. Like, the chemistry in that movie between all the actors is just on fire from start to finish. And just a fun little, different action movie. If you like those characters, if you want to see Chris Evans playing a character that's very different than Captain America, just a good little piece of action there.
See, this is the thing between you and me, because around that same time, the A-Team came out with Liam Neeson, Bradley Cooper, and Charlton Copley, and I think this is where we differ, because I think A-Team is better than The Losers.
Yes, and I would...
And I feel like... you agree?
No, I would disagree. I would disagree with you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right, fair enough. Yeah, because that's my fun, dumb action movie that came out around the same time.
And the plots are similar. The Losers does crib a little bit from the basic A-Team premise of, elite soldiers getting burned by their own government. But
right.
I think they mix it up a little bit better than... There isn't as much CGI in The Losers as there is in the A-Team, which I kind of like.
Okay, fair enough. Government turning on soldiers was kind of a big topic for that time frame of movies.
There was a lot of that.
I feel like it happened a few more times.
Well,
there's just a lot of them.
You got pretty much the Bourne movies, the whole series, and then Mission Impossible evolves into that. That is one of the things in the last couple movies is that just keeps happening, right? Is that the people, the fourth one, that was what it was all about. They pretty much blew up the whole organization they were working for, and then in this Rogue Nation one, Tom Cruise kind of goes rogue. You know what I just remembered? Alec Baldwin is in Rogue Nation.
Yeah, he is. Alec Baldwin is great.
I'd forgotten that. But he is great, and he's fun in that, too, so... okay.
Yeah, all right. Let's move. What do you got? Anything else?
No, that's it. I was going to flip it back to you. What do you got movie-wise this week? I know you...
I did not watch any movies this last week.
Oh, okay.
However...
All right.
Okay, there are two movies here. So I was away in Salt Lake this weekend, and my buddy who came into town that I unfortunately missed, Taylor, stayed in my apartment.
Okay.
And with the understanding that he would watch my dog for the weekend too, so that way I could just kind of, April and I could just have a weekend without worrying about, it's like a weekend without the kid. Anyway, so I went back and I checked my Netflix history just to see if I had actually watched any movies, and it looks like Taylor watched Good Burger and Boat Trip.
Ooh, yikes. That is. Ooh.
So I don't. It was on my account, so I don't know if you want to spend some time talking about those two movies. I have very little memory of the movie Good Burger, other than the famous line, "Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Can I take your order?" And there was like a crazy other fast food place next door that was starting up, that was very 90s. And it just, I haven't really wanted to go back to it. Have you seen that movie? Do you have any?
I don't think I've ever seen that movie start to finish. I know I've seen pieces of it when it's been on TV, but I wasn't really a Nickelodeon kid growing up. My Kenan Thompson childhood role is from the Mighty Ducks, where he does the knuckle puck. So,
oh yeah,
nothing against the Good Burger, just can't. I don't want to throw my hat into that ring because I don't have an informed opinion about it.
Yeah, fair enough. And then okay, so I think for me, the Good Burger movie is one of those nostalgic things that I could just let die. I'm okay not going back for that.
I think that's probably okay. I know I was reading a few articles about it because I think it just, part of the reason your buddy was probably watching it is because it recently had, I believe it's 20th anniversary, 25th anniversary. I don't know. I don't know how old I am and how old it is. So, but it's some major milestone anniversary. So there was like an oral history article that I read a little bit of and stuff. I don't know where I was going with this, but yeah, that's probably why I was watching it.
Okay then. So we'll just let it stay there. We don't need to go into that any further, I don't think.
I don't think so, no. Since you don't have any movies, you want to kick us off with on the TV side?
Well, hold on. Let's not neglect a boat trip with Cuba Gooding Jr. and Horatio Sands.
Can't we, though? Can't we neglect it?
Yeah, we can neglect it. Let's move on. What TV do you have from this week?
Well, since you didn't have any movies, you fire us up.
My TV was pretty damn simple. It was a couple episodes of the newest season of House of Cards, and it was the newest episode of Game of Thrones. Chris, I did not have a lot of time to get to shit this week.
That's okay. Sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
I had a lot of time, and we will. Hopefully by next episode, I will be up to speed on Game of Thrones, so we can dive into that a little bit, because I know we have not really dug deep into Game of Thrones yet. But yeah, I mean, I was busy this week packing, but I was moving, but I would do that for 10 hours and then I'd be wiped out, and so then I'd watch TV for long stretches before falling asleep. So
there you go.
I did get a fair amount of TV watching in. We are past August. Well, it is August 1st in recording time, but I watched the rest of Young Justice season 2, which still just holds up really nicely, and especially the back half of that season is just so strong with these characters. I talked a little bit about it last week, and I'm not going to talk too much more about it. But in tandem with that, I also watched most of the first season of Justice League Unlimited, because I really liked that first season with the whole Cadmus arc, and that is just some of my favorite episodes of the entire series are in that first season. So again, those were coming off Netflix, so I just wanted to watch them one last time before their accessibility went away for a while.
And do you remember off the top of your head what days those come off? Isn't it like August 10th?
Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure it was today.
Damn it.
Yeah, start of the month, I think it was.
Shit.
Yeah.
Because I definitely recommended that to a friend yesterday.
Oh, really?
Because, yeah, our desk clerks in the summer, they've got a lot of time to kill. Because they're just hanging out at front desk and they're waiting for people to come and, need something from them, which is fine. you don't always have to be doing something. But I asked him what he was watching, and I recommended, all the DC stuff that was going off Netflix soon. And doesn't look like he's going to get to it.
Yeah. Oh well. There'll be.
Too bad.
I'm sure it'll pop up somewhere in the near future.
Yeah.
Other than that, watched a little bit of Parks and Rec. That was when my buddy was in town when we were kind of taking our packing breaks. We watched a little bit of that. Second season into the third. And I might just keep going rewatching that. It's just a fun show, good cast. If you haven't watched it, I think we might have talked about it before a little bit on here. So, but yeah, that second into the third season, it really hits a nice sweet spot.
Nice.
And then last but not least, I watched the new Rick and Morty episode last night.
There's a new Rick and... Oh, shit! There's a new Rick and Morty episode.
The season premiered what day is it? Tuesday? Sunday night, I think.
Today's Tuesday.
I am so screwed up on where I am in the week right now.
Oh, my God. Hold on a second. Was it the first episode of season 3, or was it the second episode of season 3?
It was the second episode, which I was also confused about, but then when I looked it up on the Adult Swim app, it was they had both the first and the second episode of the new season available. So
nice. Well, does it continue down the trend of the darkest season yet?
It was pretty dark. It was very much about divorce. And but also it's one of these things where I should have been paying more attention to the episode. I was doing some unpacking while I was watching it, and I think I wasn't giving it the full attention it really deserved for me to appreciate what it was doing. So I might go back and rewatch it just because, but it was good. I mean, it's still they're still hitting it pretty hard and hitting the high notes pretty well. So
good. From the looks of it, it is very much a Mad Max themed episode.
Yes, a type of Mad Max-ish world that they travel to.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I remember when Rick and Morty came on. It was just such a delightful. It was a delightful treat for the summer. It was just like, oh, what's this? Oh, it's Rick and Morty. And then they kept releasing episodes, and each one was just so fucking great.
It's
because it was just so different and weird.
Yeah,
and smart yet vulgar.
My initial reaction to that show, which was also very positive, but I was like, this is what Community is without limits, like without censorship and without needing to worry about budget. Like you still. At least in the first season, I feel like it's drifted from that a little bit, but you still can feel those same Dan Harmon sensibilities in those first two seasons that really, I think, merge well with Community in terms of like the types of themes and the tone they tackle. It's just in a very different setting and with, kind of different characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
He gets oddly philosophical sometimes, not necessarily with the actual writing. I mean, there are certainly moments where the writing is philosophical too, but the overall tone of it and the overarching themes are positive and philosophical. I think I've talked about that before too with Community specifically.
Yeah.
So I won't go too much further into that again.
Sounds good. Well, before we are doing Seeso tonight, as we mentioned last episode, and we got a lot to get through there, but do we want a quick hit on any YouTube highlights?
Yeah, so I watched a video where this kid, I think it was the Music Video Awards, or maybe it's just the MTV Awards, but he's watching the Ariana Grande speech, and every time she says he eats a chili pepper. And
hey, Brian?
I don't think what?
I think you mentioned this last week.
Son of a bitch. Did I?
I mean, we can cut this out, but yeah, I'm almost positive you.
No, we're not going to cut it out.
Okay.
All right. Well, aside from that, man, I talked about that last week. Okay, anyway. I watched a couple clips from the Gong Show.
Oh, the new one?
Hosted by, the new one. And hosted by Mike Myers doing some impression of a guy that's British, but oddly enough reminds me of Robin Williams. Probably too much. To the point where I think it's distasteful. And who was on the panel? It was...
Wow, not where I thought you were going with that.
I miss Robin Williams, man. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay.
Anyway, it was Will Arnett, it was Chelsea Handler, and it was... Oh, God, who plays the guy with the perm in Wet Hot American Summer? The guy who claims that he had sex with a whole bunch of women.
Ken Marino.
Thank you, Ken Marino. They were the panelists who were who were judging the people, and there were just some really weird fucking skits on that, man. That was I do not understand the purpose of the Gong Show whatsoever, and watching a few clips of it did not give me any insight.
No, not. I have no idea.
None at all.
It's pretty much just people do weird things and then they hit the gong if they want them to get off the stage, right?
Sure.
That's my understanding, at least. That's my basic understanding of how the show works, but I could be totally wrong.
Well, the two that I saw seemed awful, yet no gong was hit.
Well,
so there's this one guy who held up a picture of one of his old teachers and said that this teacher told me I wasn't going to amount to anything. And he's got like 6 weed whackers set up. And basically he ran through the weed whackers. And that was his bit.
Whoa. That doesn't sound fun at all.
No, it doesn't sound fun. And then there was another guy who did a snake bit. And I don't even know where to begin to describe this one.
But
basically
he did a snake.
Yeah, where he dressed up like a snake. He was in a snake costume. And he slithered around the stage for a bit, and at one point he swallowed an audience member. And it was just really unsettling.
Yeah.
Super unsettling.
Well, see, when you said snake bit, I wasn't really sure where that was going either, because that could...
Yeah.
With a snake, it could mean a couple different things. Snake bit what? I was about to do a whole who's on first routine with you, but I resisted.
Yeah. Classic. But I don't understand it. I tried finding a trailer. Trailer didn't help. I tried watching a bit where Will Arnett, it was when Will Arnett was hosting Jimmy Kimmel's show for a bit, and he brought Mike Myers on as his host character to the show as a guest. Still didn't figure it out. I just couldn't stop thinking about how much I missed Robin Williams.
Oh, well, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what the prescription is for that ailment, Brian.
Yeah.
Go watch Good Morning Vietnam?
Okay, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe.
Anyway, what about you? What YouTube stuff do you want to talk about?
Just a couple real quick things. One, I wanted to, this is kind of a offhand recommendation, but right now on the website Deadspin, there is its annual Why Your Team Sucks NFL feature has just started. If you haven't read those, I highly recommend it, even for teams you don't follow. It is a ton of fun to read about why the NFL season can just be miserable for everyone. But the reason I bring that up is because the articles always start with your team and then colon, and they usually show a clip from one of the plays that went horrifically wrong for the team in the last season. So watched a little bit of the Jackson Jaguars quarterback Blake Bortles, which is a stupid name.
That's a really dumb name.
Throwing an interception. And then they had the Bears Why Your Team Sucks, which was always fun to read as a Packers fan because their highlight was Aaron Rodgers throwing a 60-yard bomb to Jordy Nelson to set up a game-winning field goal with the last 5 seconds left on the clock. So
it's a good day to be a Packer fan.
So they release one of those every day during the week leading up to the start of the regular season. They've only released 3 or 4 so far, but check those out if you're looking for a little humor and a little way to ease back into the football season. Right. After that, I also watched, I don't even know that I want to mention this, but it could be fun for our listeners, which is Mental Floss always does their list videos, which I had not watched in a very long time. And was just kind of looking to kill a few minutes while I was waiting for somebody to show up at my place, and found one that was 29 spin-offs that almost happened. So they walked through 29 different TV and a few movie ones, different spin-offs that were proposed but never happened. So most of them I had already heard of before because I'm kind of tapped into that and I've been interested in that sort of stuff. There was an interesting one about how they were going to do a show with a potential Friends spinoff with Phoebe, which I was not aware of. I knew, obviously, Joey, Matt LeBlanc's show went on the air for a couple seasons, but I didn't realize they were also
Joey
Tribbiani from...
Yep.
Oh, I thought that was a Joey with a question mark.
No.
Not a Joey.
No, that was like a Joey. That was the name of the show.
Right. Yes. Of course.
Joey.
Last thing I wanted to bring up, which I thought we could talk about, because I know I saw this on your list. As a reminder, Eyes On, Brains Off YouTube channel, we put together a list of everything we watched. We've reduced it down to the highlights here, but if you want a longer list and more fun things to watch, check out our YouTube channel. We have them divided into 2 playlists, one for Brian and one for myself. But I saw that you ticked off the It trailer, which came out this past week. And I know we are on the brink of The Dark Tower coming out, which is starting to, not necessarily reviews, but I'm reading interviews with the director starting to trickle out. And the runtime is out, and everyone seems very, very nervous about this film, and that it is going to be terrible. And I think I'm starting to lean that way. I know I've said on past episodes that I was trying to stay optimistic, but I think I'm starting to fall into that this is not going to go very well. But the It trailer, I think, looks amazing.
Yes.
Okay. Long pause. But...
Still... I still just worry about that Stephen King movie crossover. And I worry about any crossover from Stephen King to any kind of medium other than literature. I don't always think he's the strongest writer. We've talked about this before, whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, or horror. And this movie just still has me a bit worried. Mostly, the biggest concern I have about this movie... Right, and this could be homework for you for next week if you want it to be. I don't care, but I'd like you to try and watch at least a little bit of the old Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode, The Final Sacrifice, because the kid that movie follows, who they make fun of the entire time throughout that Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode, looks exactly like the brother to Georgie in It, and I cannot stop thinking about it. I cannot stop thinking about Harry Zonka's son. Well,
I don't want to watch that clip now because, like I said, I think it looks good. I'm really excited for it just because, similar to what I just said about The Mummy, where I started watching this movie and I just knew from the get-go, I was like, oh, nothing is going to be working for me here. I'm starting to get that feeling from The Dark Tower where, the It trailer, I think, just looks very cohesive. It looks, well thought out. Production looks good. I think they put out a teaser trailer for it a couple months ago where I was kind of iffy, but this I just think fleshes everything out a little bit more. Looks really suspenseful and looks just like that legitimate creepiness that I got from the book itself.
I don't want them to come out with any more podcasts or any more trailers. I don't want them to come out with any podcasts for that matter either. Now that we're on the topic.
Yeah.
I want him to stop, because I think this last trailer almost gave away a little too much. Maybe, but I worry that they're gonna release too much and they're gonna give away the whole movie, and that's gonna lose a lot of the effect. And I want movies to stop doing that. Overall,
yeah, I agree with you on that much, at least. That I think if they were to leave it here, I'd be all in. If they release one more, which it's only a month away at this point, so I don't know that they necessarily will. I mean, there'll be some like shorter TV spot type things that they put out, but maybe they'll put out one more trailer a couple weeks out. But I think hopefully this is the most of what we see, because I don't think they need to do any more. I think, to your point, they've set everything up in good enough fashion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it needs that much of a setup either. I think all you need to tell people is that there are these kids who live in a town, and in that town is also a killer clown. And that's it to start the movie.
That's true. I mean, it did make me want to go back, because I know what they're doing with this movie is that in the book you have this narrative that goes back and forth between present day and when they were kids, and this movie is only going to be about when they were kids. So
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, so because they want to make it ideally into a two-parter, so they're not advertising it as such, but the idea is that they do this movie that would just be the kids as they were kids, and then the second part would be when they're adults. So I think
do they have a cast for the adults yet?
I don't think so, because I think they're waiting to see how this movie does box office wise. But
smart.
I think I think they really lucked out with this whole, kind of Stranger Kids resurgence Stranger Things resurgence, where focusing on the kids first. I think they're really going to benefit from those things kind of being. Stranger Things definitely has a Stephen King influence to it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think Stranger Things lucked out too a bit, because they got a really good cast for that. I mean, those kids are really awesome actors, and I can't think of a movie where there's been a primary kid cast in the last 5 years or so where everybody was just raving about how great everybody is. I mean, the only thing that I think comes close is the movie Super 8 by J.J. Abrams again. And so far, only one of those actresses has come out of that on top and is continuing to make movies. I don't think anyone else from that movie has really been in anything. And generally, I think everybody thinks that Super 8 is an okay movie, but not necessarily up to the level that Stranger Things is. Is there anything else you want to add to that conversation? I mean, I feel like we can only talk about it so much.
I think we covered it. Check out the trailer if you're into fun, freaky things. I think, the one thing I'm a little curious about is that you'd think it would benefit them a little bit to put it out a little closer to Halloween, but this is actually coming out, I believe, the weekend after Labor Day weekend, September 8th, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see how that goes.
And if they do this right, though, the effects are going to last far past Halloween.
Yeah, if it gets good reviews, I think this movie will do very well box office-wise.
Yeah. Yep. And I think we're going to see probably a lot of clowns this Halloween.
Oh, God. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah.
Better than Trump's.
Yep. Hey, I don't know how your resume is, but you think I could be a White House communications director?
Oh, boy. Oh, wow. At the rate they're going through, maybe.
Just get it on the resume for a little bit. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
Well, hey, man, Seeso. I mean, this was the shared viewing for this week. I know you've been waiting to talk about it. I'm dying to talk about it too. So, where do you want to start?
This is our shared viewing for the week. Seeso, if you're not familiar, is a comedy streaming platform that for $3.99 a month, I believe it is. You can get access to a bunch of original content and a bunch of older comedy stuff. I think they have all Monty Python on there, all of SNL, Parks and Rec, like a bunch of older NBC sitcoms and stuff you can get access to. But Brian and I were mostly concerned with the original programming and getting a nice handful of stuff from there to sample and relay to you guys to let you know if you should check it out or not. So in terms of where to start, why don't we do Hidden America with Jonah Ray?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay.
I guess for me, I watched the entire first season. I know you watched a couple episodes. I honestly, out of all the things I watched, and I watched 5 different series, either all of it or a part of them, this was by far my favorite. I thought that it took me a little while to warm up to it, and I like Jonah Ray Rodriguez, but I wasn't entirely sure that he had the right tone for what he was trying to pull off with this show. But after like the first episode, I was all in. And Hidden America is it's a comedic take on a Anthony Bourdain type show, where he visits a different city each time, talks with the locals, samples different food, gets a little piece of the culture, but it's shot like one of those Anthony Bourdain shows, but it is all scripted and just a parody of those type of shows. And it's done really well. And it is I thought the humor was great. The voiceover, especially the amount of jokes they slipped into that, where you're not even really listening. And then you have to go, wait, what? Oh crap. That was really funny. I just really enjoyed it from start to finish.
Oh, man. I mean, he nails it as far as that tone goes and that travel show feel. It was spot on. I mean, the tone of his voice alone when he was doing those voiceovers was just excellent. The only thing that I saw, I mean, every now and then they'll bring in something that's like a little bit hard to believe is kind of happening. For me, it was the first episode when he runs into that other Guy Fieri style eating show.
Yes.
Not my favorite moment, but I love pretty much everything else.
It does. So that moment, I agree with you there. It's maybe a little miscalculated to put that in the first episode, but it does pay off at the end of the season, I will say.
Oh, okay.
So that guy does come back later. The one thing that I wish this show had done was, and it does it a little bit in the later episodes, and I wish it had just leaned into it a little bit more, which was you start to get little tastes of who Jonah is beyond the presenter persona he plays. And you get this in little bits where he's out at the bar and he's like trying to hook up with different girls because he's kind of lonely. And, it reminded me a little bit of Review starring Andy Daly on Comedy Central, where that show is also set up in kind of a reality show format where we actually get to see the main presenter's home life as well and how the actions on the show he does affects his life outside the show. Mm-hmm. And again, we got a little bit of that in Hidden America, and I wish they just would have leaned into that a little bit more, because those were some of the parts I was really enjoying, where it was just, you're kind of seeing, I wish Jonah had broken down a little bit more, I guess, because I really liked seeing, he seemed to be moving in that direction where he's just kind of devolving from someone who's like, yeah, and I'm kind of doing this cool show, to someone's like, oh, maybe this show isn't that great, to, oh, like, maybe my life isn't that great. And I wish you get a little bit of that, but I wish they would have played into it a little bit more.
Yeah. And that kind of plays into a larger theme when it comes to the other shows almost all the other shows we're going to talk about. It's just the genuineness behind them, and how much, I think, specifically with Hidden America, I think you really get to see, Jonah's vision for what he wanted to do, and the work that he did with, whether it was just himself or with his friends, on how he wanted to do it. But I really liked I just felt real. I mean, it felt like it was just well put together. It wasn't trying to impress anybody for a pilot or anything like that. It was just, here's what I made. I hope you like it.
Yes.
And I did.
Yeah. And I think, if you're okay moving on, I think that kind of brings me to what I wanted to talk about with My Brother and Me. Mm-hmm. Which is a show based on the podcast, which is a great podcast. Check it out if you haven't. But I really liked the show. And what I liked about the show is kind of what you were saying, is that, these are streaming shows. They make all their episodes at once without any feedback from the audience or anything. So they can't course correct. And to me, between this, My Brother and Me, which is, and again, I want to make sure we're providing context here. So it's about three brothers, and on their podcast, they take questions from listeners and give comedic advice. And on the show, they filmed it all in their hometown, which was very cool, I thought. And they just take one question per episode and try and figure out the best way to help people with their life problems. And to your point, to your point about the genuineness of what we're seeing through some of these Seeso shows, is that I think there are two approaches you can take to doing if you know you're going to do one season of a TV show, which is, one, you can say, all right, I know the story I want to tell, and I'm going to tell it in a way that will hopefully engage people and, secure a second season so I can continue telling this story. And the other way, which is, I think, the My Brother and Me approach, was we have one season to do a TV show and we never know that we're going to be able to do this again. So let's do everything we want to do. And, it's the first time we're doing it, so maybe it'll all work and maybe it won't. And we'll just see what happens. And I think for the most part they succeed, but, there are definitely some moments. And again, I watched the whole first season. I know you watched a couple episodes. I think, a lot of the times it works, and it works really well. And sometimes it doesn't, but you gotta just admire them for the ambition that they're having for trying to do this, and especially without any real experience at having done something like this before.
And I think what I like about My Brother and Me so much is just how much joy there is in the episode and how much joy there is between the brothers. That's what I found the most infectious when I was watching it. There was just a really good feeling and just kind of like a happy, like, oh man, they really love doing this. And they're really having a great time while they're doing this. So it's just hard not to jump on that and just feel good about it.
Yeah, they're very infectious with that. And
that's the genuineness I'm talking about. It's that we only have one shot to do this potentially. We love doing it this way, so we're going to make this great. And specifically, I think they've just got a really great intro with, hey, it's your oldest brother, your middleest brother, and then your sweet baby brother. That's just good intro.
Yeah, and again, that's exactly what they do on the podcast, and I think they do a good job of bringing those sensibilities into the show. And I think for something like this, again, going off what you were saying, it could very easily feel very, very staged. And obviously a lot of it is, like, they're not fooling anyone with some of their setups, but they're somehow able to overcome it in a way that a show like, say, like Pawn Stars or American Pickers, like, just, these guys are set up and rehearsed and, but these guys are somehow able to overcome the fact that this is a production and make it all seem very, very real and spontaneous.
I think they're going into it saying, hey, okay, here's the outline and the points we want to hit. We don't care how we get there as long as we're just, like, hitting these points. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think that's what helps. I think one of my favorite moments of the episodes that I watched was when the youngest, the sweetest baby brother, had to put this turtle stool back at an antique store, and he was saying goodbye to it, And the owner of the store comes up and he's going to the turtle. Hey, it's okay. I'm gonna come and see you, and it's gonna be fine. And before I go, we're gonna go through our bedtime tradition one last time. And the owner comes up and just starts reading this kid's story out of nowhere. And the fact that they got her in on it and her to do anything with them was just a lot of fun. And God, you just see. I think going to what you were saying about not seeming like it's staged, I think them laughing and having a good time and not being shy about the good time they're having creating this really helps us get past that.
Yeah, I think they're very much themselves. Even though they're put in these situations to help build a structure and an arc of an episode, they are never not being themselves and the people them as from their podcast, which is, I think, they keep that heart and soul of the show, the podcast, and transfer it to the show very nicely.
Mm-hmm. It's nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good way to move on to Take My Wife. I don't know. You got a couple episodes of that in, right?
I watched the first season of that as well.
God damn, Chris. What's your secret?
I went to town, man.
Jeez.
It's a lot of focus, Brian. It's just about having a lot of focus and drive and passion, Brian. It's about the passion.
I have all that.
I'm not calling any of those things into question about yourself, but I'm just saying you asked, right. and that was the answer. So
you're right. Oh, real quick, I just want to share a note that I wrote down for my brother and me, and it is, and I quote, "This show is just delightful." And that end quote.
It's a good quote. They should put that on the poster.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we can get a sponsor from Seeso.
Man, hopefully, if it survives.
This is going to give them that jump in ratings. This is where it's going to happen.
That's right. Everyone go out and do a Seeso free trial so they think people are interested.
All right. Take My Wife. Carmen Esposito, Rhea Butcher. What do you think?
So Carmen Esposito, Rhea Butcher, married female comedians, and this show is about their relationship, more or less. It is a little bit, having just seen The Big Sick the other week, it reminded me a little bit of that. They are not taking as much of an autobiographical bent as that movie did, I don't think, but it is still, they're playing versions of themselves, and it's about their relationship. And it's pretty much the road to how they got married. At least that's what's set up in this first episode, is to set up the series. And here's what I'll say. Having seen the entire first season, I will say it is very solid, but it is bookended by two pretty mediocre episodes. It is a very, very solid run from episodes 2 through 5. But the first episode, and I don't know what you thought about it, but I thought the first episode was supremely rough.
I wouldn't say that it's rough. I definitely don't think it was rough. I think there were some moments in it where you just didn't really know what was necessarily going on, but I wasn't deterred by it by any means.
And see, I almost was. After watching that first episode, I really thought about whether or not I was going to watch the second, and I'm really glad I did. But the first episode, I thought, and you can see going through the season that the first episode, they just had, in my opinion, a very, very hard time figuring out how to enter the story they wanted to tell. So I think like you kind of get that later, but in the moment, it's very hard to understand like what the point of all of this is in terms of like. It's almost from a uniqueness standpoint, which feels really odd to say when you're talking about a show about a pair of married lesbian comedians. but because that's pretty unique, and they do a really great job like working that stuff into their episodes. But the idea of like someone quitting their job to become a stand-up comic is a story that's been told before. So once we get past that in that first episode, because that's pretty much what the whole first episode is about. Once you get past that, that's when it started to get really good for me. And I thought everything, like, and I was really impressed at how much things tightened up from episode 1 to 2 even. And then, like I said, that run towards the end, the last episode of the season ends in a way where I was a little unsure if the ending was supposed to be a cliffhanger. And then one of the cool things about the show is that they end with these interviews with Carmen Esposito and Rhea Butcher talking about the episode itself. So it's like little mini commentaries, but at the end of the episode, which I really liked the insight that they provided. But they said in that last episode that the ending was supposed to be a cliffhanger, and I was like, that's not a very high stakes cliffhanger. So there's also, I don't know how you felt about this too, and I'll promise I'll let you get your 2 cents in here in a minute. The neighbor character, I was not crazy about.
The who?
The neighbor.
No, the neighbor. Sorry, I thought you said Maber, and I was like, I do not remember a Maber character. No, neighbor. Yeah, not the best, but she's not in it a whole lot from what I saw. Who is she?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Okay, well, let's just do a real quick. Take my wife, IMDb. What do we got here? What's the neighbor's name? Do you know? Is it Frances?
Could be.
It is Frances. Okay. She is from... Oh, wait, no. That's her producer credits. Here we go. She's from 6 seasons, it looks like, of Will and Grace.
Huh.
She's in a couple episodes of Mr. Show with Bob and David.
That explains.
Dr. Katz, professional therapist. Wait.
What's her
shit.
What's her name,
Oh,
Brian?
yeah, sorry. Laura Neitlinger.
Okay.
Who apparently was on SNL for a season. Yeah, back in 94, 95. So we were a little young for that. Yeah,
but that was also when they had a humongous cast, so that's pretty easy to get lost in the shuffle of the...
Oh, is it?
That's the year where, I don't know if this is exactly the year, but around that time they had Myers, Carvey, Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, David Spade, just like all the big, like Norm Macdonald and Kevin Nealon, Tim Meadows, like at one point they had like all these huge names on it. Their cast was like 20 people. It was insane.
Yeah, that's too many. That's just too many people.
Yeah. But back to Take My Wife. I mean, okay. Do you have any agree, disagree with where I'm coming at it from? I mean, from what you saw, I mean, what were your takeaways?
So I think there are 2 important takeaways from Take My Wife. The first is that I will always be drawn towards shows where comics are just like starting to get their start and they're struggling and everything like that. I think this show does a good job of that. Yes. It shows the struggle of trying to become a comic, or in Carmen Esposito's case, where she is kind of an established comic in the LA scene where she's running her own show and whatnot, but now she's trying to bust out. She's trying to get bigger. And she's going through that a little bit. Yeah,
and I think that was one of the things I liked too, was I didn't realize how focused on comedy it was going to be going into the show. Because in everything I had read about it, it was so much about their relationship. But their relationship is so tied to their comedy careers that you can't really divorce the two. And so, in total agreement that seeing that behind the scenes, and what I really liked were the shots of, a lot of the show takes place at a comedy club, and part of their relationship is them hosting a show together, and those off-stage scenes where you're watching the comics, watch who's performing. I really like that stuff.
Oh, those are the best.
Yeah.
Those were easily the most solid scenes at least in the second episode. Those trailing shots.
Oh yeah.
Where they're just following him around. And I think the second episode, and hold on a second, because this is my second thing, because the second episode I think is also very important, and that is not only is the show about people trying to become comics, but it specifically focuses on a woman's perspective of it. And it can be very eye-opening in a way that is not too in your face, well, not too aggressive. Like, there are certainly moments where it can be aggressive, and I think it should be, but for the most part, it still helps you, it helps connect more.
It was, in that second episode in particular, and going back to the first, where they kind of lay the groundwork for it, where you see Carmen Esposito, like, reading these, like, aggressively mean tweets, and you just kind of start to process that, and you're like, God, how can you live with, like, how can you take that every day and just brush it off? And then in the second episode, where they have a male comedian doing rape jokes, it was, what I was most impressed with was the civility, because you have this male comedian doing those jokes. They come on, they kind of tear into him, not really tear into, but kind of start poking fun at what he was talking about. And then you have the scene after the show where they all kind of talk about what happened and, part pretty amicably about it.
I think that was my favorite part in the episode.
Because
when they part amicably, and then he apologizes for the joke, and I want people to go. Well, I don't know. Do you think we should just talk about it openly instead of like worrying about spoiling it?
I don't know. I feel like we spoiled most of that episode already. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, because after he tells the joke, Rhea and Carmen Esposito go up there, and she kind of breaks some tension about talking about being a survivor of sexual assault. And after the episode, the dude who was telling the rape jokes apologizes for it and says, "I didn't know you were a survivor." And Carmen jumps in there too, saying, "You know what? I am also a survivor." And then it jumps to multiple women and men from the episode, which can be a little bit jarring at first, but I still really like how they did it, saying how they were also survivors of sexual assault. And I think, at least from a higher education perspective, one of our activities is called Walk in Another Person's Shoes, or something to the same tune of that, where you fill out an anonymous survey, and then you collect all the surveys. You're in a group with like a classroom or something, and then you redistribute the surveys randomly. So you don't know whose survey you got, and it's questions like, I come from middle class background, or I don't eat meat. And if the box on the sheet that you got that was redistributed back to you is checked, you're supposed to stand up. And one of the parts of the survey says, I'm a survivor, or I know I'm close with a survivor of sexual assault. And it's really powerful in that moment, seeing all these people, or some people, stand up in a room anonymously, because then you realize how surrounded, or how it affects people, and how present it is in the lives around you. And that's how I felt about that moment in that episode. And I thought it was powerful. I thought it was good.
Yeah, I think, good TV helps you broaden your worldview, which that episode in particular, I think the whole series does very well, and that episode in particular. The other thing, just going back to what you were talking about from the kind of the behind the scenes comedy part, is what that episode does well also is like just like allowing people to make a mistake, where people need, this is kind of a little weird to say, but people need the opportunity to make mistakes and then be corrected so that they understand not to make that mistake again. And in comedy, that's particularly important. Like, you need to understand where the line is and how going over that line affects people. And I think that this episode, the second episode in particular, did a nice job with that.
Right. It definitely focused on the educational aspect of it, which is easily the most important aspect of it. You know, anybody can make a remark, and your response to that remark can be, "You're an asshole," or "fuck you." But that doesn't really do anything. Whereas if you stop and you have the conversation with them, maybe try to gain a little bit more of their perspective, then you're opening the doors more and you're helping create that better worldview.
Definitely. So, yeah, I mean, that was another... I would say these first three that we've talked about were all highlights from my Seeso experience. And I think as we wrap up here, we should talk about a few of the lower lights of what we saw. And one of those, for me, unfortunately, was a show called Bajillion Dollar Properties, which was... it is a parody reality show similar to Hidden America, but this time parodying a house hunter-esque type show, except dealing with very expensive LA properties. And I watched a couple episodes of this. I was really trying to give it a chance and just see what they would do with it and see if it would kind of find its legs a bit. But I think part of the problem with this show is that it's almost like parody done too well. Like, they're honing too close to what these shows are actually like, that the humor doesn't land. Because you can watch a show like this and laugh at the people, but when those people are being deliberately... they're doing these things deliberately where, it's scripted. It just, I couldn't connect with it.
And I thought again, they did the parody. Whoa, hey Martha. Shaking off a little bit. They did the parody really well. I mean, they nailed it. They hit all the beats, they got the characters right, they nailed the tone of it. And I don't know if it's because that's not difficult or if they're just that good at what they do. But my issue with Bajillion was, I didn't see that genuineness or that joy in the work as much as I saw with My Brother and Me and Take My Wife or even Hidden America. And on top of that, I just don't care about that kind of TV.
Yeah.
So it doesn't connect with me well. So the fact that they're parodying it, I don't care.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. Going back to what you said, first of all, this very much felt like a product where the first three shows we talked about feel like passion projects.
Well, I don't think I can see how this is a passion project, for these people. Paul F. Tompkins specifically. It's just, I think it's harder to have that. It's harder to make people feel like it's genuine because that's just not the format. Because the reality show they're parodying it off of is fake. And it is manipulated for days on end. That this also is supposed to look manipulated and fake, which makes it more difficult for them to get that joy across.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's just, and again, maybe it gets better. I only watched the first 3 or 4 episodes. Maybe it kind of figures that stuff out a little bit farther down the road, but it just was not grabbing me in the same way these other shows that we talked about did.
I watched I only watched 1 episode because by the time I was done with it, my first thought was, okay, that'll do, pig. That'll do. I don't feel like I'm going to gain anything from continuing to watch it. It's good. Don't get me wrong. It's good and it can connect with people. However, it's just not connecting with us, and that's okay.
No. Yeah, and the other thing, I only watched 5 minutes of this because this was even harder for me to get into, which was Harmon Quest, which is Dan Harmon, the man behind Community and Rick and Morty, playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then the bits are animated. But I don't know, it wasn't very funny. You could tell it was the audio was very heavily edited and condensed, so like the voice actors, the people playing the game, were like laughing about stuff themselves, where I was just like, I don't even understand why this would begin to be funny. And part of that may just be, I've tried some Dungeons and Dragons podcasts, and maybe that stuff just isn't for me in general, where it doesn't resonate.
I think you have to have an appreciation for Dan Harmon, a little bit more, and I think you have to know a little bit, or not necessarily know, but have an appreciation for where Harmon Quest came from, which was at the end of his Harmontown podcast. And if you enjoyed the end of the Harmontown podcast, which people don't, and that's okay, then I can see how I watched the first episode of Harmon Quest. I really enjoyed it. Admittedly, I watched it a while ago when it was free on Amazon before I even had Seeso. It was when they were really trying to promote what Seeso was when it first came out. So I don't know. I thought it was funny. I thought there were moments in it that, were enjoyable. Specifically when the Dungeon Master, Spencer Crittenden, says, and now we'll start the ceremony by reading the annual seance or something, read by Paul F. Tompkins. And Paul F. Tompkins just gives him this look like, really? You're just going to throw me under the bus with this? And you're not going to let me... You didn't let me prepare or anything? It's just a really great look he throws him. I don't know if I'll watch any more of it. I'm excited I got some more time with Seeso. I do intend to get a few more things in before the deal ends. But hey, real quick, can I ask you something?
Sure.
How you doing? I missed the reminder that I got, but how you doing?
I'm doing good. This new apartment doesn't get as hot as my old one, so I'm in really great shape right now as we awesome. Come to the close. I think you just started to get into it, but I think we need to give people kind of a final say here. Is it worth the $3.99 a month to invest in Seeso, another streaming platform where they might already have a Netflix or a Hulu or an Amazon or some combination of those? Do you think this is worth continuing to pay for every month?
Is that rhetorical, or are you asking me specifically?
I'm asking you. I think, well, it's our job. I have an answer to that question as well, but I'm starting by asking you.
All right. I think it's good for 1 month. I think if you get to work and you really give it a go, then 1 month of Seeso is all you need. You can watch pretty much you can hit all of the shows comfortably. Hidden America, Take My Wife, My Brother and Me, Bajillion, Harmon Quest, like pretty much all the ones that you'd want to watch, as well as, from what it looks like, some stand-up comedy specials, and be okay. Like I don't think there's anything really coming out on it that is really making me want to stay. But I think like $4 for a month will definitely make me, like, I might pop in again, binge it, and then get out.
Yeah, I think I would even go one step further than that, which is Take My Wife and My Brother and Me are 6 half-hour episodes. Hidden America is 9 half-hour episodes. Those would be the only things I would come back for right now. And I would say if you have a quiet weekend, sign up for that free trial, bang it out, and be done. Because I don't think there's enough. There are other shows on there that we didn't get to, obviously, and maybe those are worth watching. But these are the ones we pick because of the people we are familiar with and the ones that seem the most promising. And I think for the most part we hit them pretty well. Did some solid picks. I would say I think, and I could be inaccurate, but I believe that the first episode there's at least one episode of My Brother, and Me, Hidden America, and I believe Take My Wife on YouTube that you can watch for free. So give those a try. I think there are other Seeso shows that have at least one episode up on YouTube that you can watch for free. Give it a try, see what you like, and see if you think this is your kind of comedy.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth it. If you like some of the shows that have popped up, or hold on, where am I going with this? No, just get into it. There's nothing to lose off that free trial. And if you like it, stick with it. If not, it's a free trial.
For sure. Well, I think that brings us to a close here. Next week, Brian, what are we watching?
We are watching Friends from College, off the Netflix original series, starring Keegan-Michael Key, right?
There you go. Yep, there you go.
Okay, sorry. It's Jordan Peele and Keegan-Michael Key. Colby Smulders is in it. Ben Savage. A bunch of other talented people are in this show. And it's when Keegan-Michael Key and Colby Smulders move back to New York, where all their friends from college live, and just start hanging out with them again. A little bit of drama ensues. They get each other riled up a little bit. Billy Eichner is in it, and that's exciting to me. I enjoyed the bits of Terrible People on Hulu that I watched, and I'm excited to see him again. But we're going to be looking through that entire series by the time we get here next week.
That's an 8-episode season, I believe, right?
It's not long.
Okay. Well, yeah, so next time, Friends from College. And, in the meantime, once again, we've been saying this at the top of the last couple episodes, but just a big thank you to everyone who's been listening so far, giving us feedback, sharing with friends. We're still honing it in, but I think we're getting closer each time, and especially with the feedback people have been giving us. So thank you again for that. I'm going to mention this at the end of the episode because I haven't mentioned it. I mentioned it at the top of the last few, but thank you to John Thorson for our artwork. We wouldn't be on iTunes without it. So if you need graphic design work, hit him up. I don't know.
I mean, did he want that promotion?
I don't know, but whatever. Then also, please leave reviews, rate, subscribe. We have our email address, eyesonbrainsoffpod@gmail.com. You can find that in our iTunes description and our description for other things.
And if you shoot us an email, we felt inspired by the My Brother and Me podcast. We are obviously always looking for feedback, and we want to hear how we're doing here. But if you're looking for a recommendation for a watch, maybe your day at work is going to be crappy and you want to pick me up, we're your guys. All right? Maybe you want a new sci-fi show that resembles Stargate but isn't as hammy with MacGyver in it. We can help you out. So come to us. We want to be that resource for you, and we want to field those questions because we think that'd be a lot of fun. So come to us, help us help you with recommendations, and I think we'll have a lot of fun. So that's us for this week. Thank you again for listening to us for the episode. And we're going to continue doing shout-outs in the intros for all those who are listening and giving us feedback. So make sure if you're looking for that shout-out that you reach out to us. We appreciate the email. We appreciate the text message. We appreciate your listenership. And that is out for the week. And here is Sting, and it cut off his new album. No, that'd be funny, though. We can't get Sting. We don't have the rights to that.
Banana!
Have a good week, everybody, and we'll tune in next week. I don't know how to end this episode. I don't know why I'm struggling with the ending right now.
It's fine. Stop recording.
All right, stopping recording. All right, I'm done.